In the dusty village of Kafari, where the sun beat down hard on the earth and the trees whispered ancient secrets, there lived a quiet woman named Amina. She was known to all as the widow who barely spoke, who wore the same blue wrapper every market day and walked with her head slightly bowed. Her husband, Musa, a respected farmer, had died 5 years ago under mysterious circumstances that no one dared speak of openly. Since then, Amina lived alone in her compound, tending to her small farm and minding her business. But silence does not mean weakness and peace does not mean fear. People often mistake calmness for cowardice, especially people like Madame Sefina. Madame Sefina was the wealthiest trader in Kafari. She owned half the stalls in the market, controlled the price of pepper and maize, and had the village chief wrapped around her finger with gifts and gossip. She drove a white Prado while others walked or rode Okada. Her laugh was loud, her voice sharper than a razor, and her eyes were always watching. She was used to having her way. When she said something, it happened. No one dared cross her, until the day she set her eyes on Amina's land. Amina's farm, though small, sat on a fertile patch of land beside the river. It was the only land left near the water, and Madame Sefina wanted it to expand her poultry business. She offered to buy it. Amina refused. Sefina increased her offer. Amina still said no. She smiled politely and said, "This land feeds me. It's not for sale." That simple answer lit a fire in Sefina's heart. How dare a poor widow refuse her? From that moment it was no longer about land. It was about pride. Strange things started happening to Amina. One morning she found her cassava crops slashed and rotting in the field. Another day, her goats were poisoned. Rumors began to spread in the market that Amina was a witch who cursed her husband and now cursed her land. Sefina's boys whispered these lies into every ear willing to listen. When Amina brought her okra to sell, no one bought. Her name was now filth in people's mouths. The village chief summoned her and suggested she sell the land for her own safety. Amina looked him in the eye and simply said, "Truth does not fear the fire." The chief said nothing, but things got worse. One night, Amina woke to the sound of footsteps in her compound. She peered through the curtain and saw shadows moving around her yam barn. She stayed silent, clutching the Quran in one hand and a pestle in the other. She didn't sleep that night. In the morning, all her yams were gone. That was the final straw. Amina tied her wrapper, took her walking stick and went to the town of Gamba 3 hours away. She did not tell anyone why. She returned 2 days later with an envelope and a quiet fire in her eye. What no one knew was that Amina's late husband had secretly registered the land under her name with a lawyer in Gamba, and the documents were still valid. Not only that, but the land had been marked years ago as part of a protected wetland, making it illegal for any commercial farming or construction. She submitted the papers to the district office. A week later, government officials arrived in Kafari with trucks and questioned. They shut down Sefina's poultry farm for polluting the river and fined her heavily. When she protested, she was told the complaint had come from a certified landholder with environmental claims. Her face turned pale when she realized it was Amina. But Amina was not done. She took every rumor, every lie and every threat, and she turned them into truth's armor. She invited a group of young women in the village and started a co-op farming project on her land. She taught them how to grow ginger, okra, and sweet potato. With some small loans and a little support from a charity in Gamba, their produce began to reach bigger markets. For the first time, women in Kafari were earning their own money, and the land that once looked like a poor widow's struggle became a beacon of hope. Sefina watched all of this from the shadows of her now quiet poultry shed. Her pride was gone. Her power slipped through her fingers like dust. She tried to bribe the village chief again, but this time, the chief refused. He knew better now. He had seen what happened when someone messed with the wrong woman, one whose silence was filled with strength, not fear, one who fought with wisdom, not war. Years passed. Amina never spoke of what she endured. She never shouted, never accused, never bragged. She simply worked, lifted others, and let time reveal the truth. And truth, as they say, always returns home, even if it walks slowly. Children in the village now grew up hearing stories not just of the rich woman in a Prado, but of the widow who stood alone and changed everything. They said, "Don't look down on someone just because they are quiet. You might be looking down at a mountain." One evening, as the sun set and the village buzzed with chatter, a young girl asked Amina, Why didn't you fight back when they called you a witch? Amina smiled and said, because sometimes, silence is the loudest answer, and because I knew she had already made her biggest mistake. If this story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you of someone strong in your life, please subscribe to the channel, share this video with others, and don't forget to press the bell icon so you never miss another powerful story. African stories matter. Your support helps us keep telling them.